Welcome to History What If, where we question the events that already happened. What really could have happened? Could we have changed the outcome? Before we begin, everything you're about to hear is based on historical research, facts, and records. The what-if scenarios are my own opinion and interpretation of events, designed to make you think, question, and explore history differently. This is not the official historical record. This is history, through a different lens. Today's question: what if the United States, a country that calls it soccer and mostly ignores it for 3 years and 11 months out of every 4 years, actually won the whole thing on home soil? Let's go. Here's the setup. For the first time since 1994, the World Cup is being hosted in the United States, along with Canada and Mexico. It's the biggest one ever. 48 teams, 104 games. One captain described it as a Super Bowl every single day for 5 weeks. America loves a Super Bowl. America is about to get 35 of them. And here's the part nobody expected. The USA came out swinging. They beat Paraguay 4-1, and a guy named Balogun scored twice, making him the first American to score multiple World Cup goals in a single match since literally 1930. 1930. That's how long America's been mid at this. Now America's playing Australia next. The group is heating up, and for the first time in a long time, Americans are looking at their soccer team and going, wait, are we allowed to be excited about this? So today we skip ahead and ask the big one: what if they actually win the whole tournament? Because here's the thing, the USA winning the World Cup wouldn't just be a sports result, it would be a full-blown national identity crisis, in the best possible way. Let me explain why this would break the entire country's brain. Grab your foam finger and your sudden, deeply confusing emotional investment in a sport you've ignored your whole life. Let's pull the thread. First, some context on America's relationship with soccer, which can only be described as it's complicated. The rest of the planet calls it football, treats it like a religion, and organizes their entire lives around it. America looked at the most popular sport on earth and went, nah, we'll invent 3 of our own instead. And then there's the name. The entire world calls it football, America calls it soccer, and then gave the name football to a completely different sport where they mostly use their hands. The rest of the planet has never fully forgiven us for this. It comes up in every single argument. Every one. Here's the wild part though. America is a sports superpower, dominates the Olympics, invented or perfected basketball, baseball, American football, pours billions into athletics, and yet at the world's most popular sport, historically, mid. Solidly, consistently mid. It's the one trophy the giant never grabbed. The US men's team has never won a World Cup. Their best ever finish was 3rd place, back in 1930, the very first tournament, when basically 8 teams showed up and you could finish 3rd by just vibing. Since then, a lot of almost, a lot of maybe next time, and one famously painful tournament they didn't even qualify for. So expectations have always been managed. Americans show up to the World Cup with the energy of, we probably won't win, but it'd be fun to watch, and the jerseys are cool. It's the sports equivalent of buying a lottery ticket. You're not counting on it, but imagine. In most of these countries, soccer isn't a hobby, it's the entire culture. Babies get a ball before they get a vote. The USA, meanwhile, splits its best athletes across 5 different sports. Imagine if every gifted American athlete played soccer instead of football or basketball. The what-if team would be terrifying. And the tournament format is merciless. After the group stage, it's single elimination, knockout, one bad day, one unlucky bounce, one questionable call, and you're on a plane home. There's no best of 7 safety net like Americans are used to. It's win or go home every single round. And then there's the great equalizer of soccer. It's a low-scoring sport where anything can happen. A massive favorite can dominate the whole game, hit the post 4 times, and lose 1-0 to a fluke goal. That randomness is exactly why upsets happen, and exactly why a hosting USA on a hot streak is genuinely dangerous. So realistically, the odds are stacked against them. But stacked against them is not impossible. And in a 48-team home tournament where they've already shown they can put up 4 goals, the door is cracked open. Which brings us to the fun part. What if they walk through it? Because here's what makes this what if so juicy. It's not just can they win, it's what would it do to America if they did. This is a country that barely acknowledges soccer exists, so a World Cup win wouldn't be a normal celebration. It would be a cultural earthquake. Think about it. Millions of Americans who couldn't name a single player, who think offside is a type of parking, would suddenly become die-hard, lifelong fans overnight. The bandwagon would be visible from space. And honestly, good for them. Welcome aboard. We saved you a seat. So let's say it happens. The whistle blows, the USA wins the World Cup on home soil, and the country collectively loses its mind. What actually happens next? Let's pull that thread. The final whistle blows, USA wins, and for about 10 seconds, the entire country is silent. Not because they're sad, but because nobody can quite believe it. Then every single person who watched 10 minutes of one game becomes the world's biggest soccer historian. "I've followed this team for years," says the guy who learned the offside rule this afternoon. The celebration would be unhinged. We're talking a parade in every major city, the players getting the full hero treatment, and at least one of them becoming a household name so fast they get a cereal box by Tuesday. America does celebrations big. Imagine the Super Bowl, but the entire planet is watching and slightly annoyed. And the rest of the world? They would be in absolute disbelief and a little bit furious. The idea of the USA, the country that calls it soccer, lifting the trophy that nations have wept over for a century, some places would simply refuse to accept it. The group chats of the world would never recover. So let's walk through the aftermath of Team USA actually winning. First and biggest change. Football would explode in America overnight. Youth signups would go through the roof. Every kid who wanted to be the next basketball star suddenly wants to be the next World Cup hero. A whole generation pivots. The domestic league would suddenly matter. Stadiums that were half empty would sell out. TV networks that buried soccer at 2 a.m. would fight over the rights. The sport America politely ignored for decades would become appointment television basically overnight. Money follows winning, and winning just showed up. And here's a fun one. Remember that whole soccer versus football name war? If the USA won the World Cup, you better believe some Americans would double down and insist on calling it soccer louder out of pure spite. "We call it soccer and we won. Stay mad." The name war would reach nuclear levels. But here's the twist, the deeper effect. Winning wouldn't just make America like soccer. It would change how the world sees American soccer forever. The US would go from "cute, they're trying" to an actual respected threat. Every future tournament, teams would have to take them seriously. That respect doesn't go away. So welcome to the timeline where the USA are World Cup champions. It's a louder, more soccer-obsessed, slightly more insufferable America. And honestly, a more fun one. Let's keep going. Now the funniest ripple effect. The casual fan phenomenon goes into overdrive. America is the world capital of the bandwagon fan. Win a championship and suddenly everyone owns the jersey, knows the chant, and has always believed. A World Cup win would create the largest instant fan base in sports history. The merchandise alone would fund a small country. Jerseys, scarves, flags, commemorative everything. There would be a limited edition cereal, a sneaker collab, and at least one player launching a hot sauce within a week. America doesn't just celebrate, it monetizes the celebration immediately and aggressively. Politicians would trip over themselves to be associated with it. There'd be a White House visit, a key to every city, and roughly 400 photo ops. A soccer ball would become a temporary symbol of national unity, which, given everything, might honestly be the most useful thing a soccer ball has ever done. And the kids, this is the genuinely sweet part. A whole generation of American kids would grow up thinking the USA is supposed to be good at soccer. That's how dynasties start. The 1999 women's team did exactly this. Inspired a generation. A men's win would light that same fuse all over again. There's actually a real lesson buried in this one. America already proved it on the women's side. The US women's team is a global powerhouse that's won multiple World Cups and inspired millions. So the blueprint exists. The men winning wouldn't be a fluke of the universe. It'd be the men's side finally catching up to what the women already built. And the global soccer power balance would genuinely shift. For a century, the same handful of countries have dominated. A USA win cracks that open. It tells every non-traditional soccer nation that the old order can be beaten. It's not just America's win, it's a win for every underdog watching. Of course, there would be downsides. The insufferability index would hit an all-time high. For about 2 years, you would not be able to escape it. Every American abroad would mention it, unprompted, constantly. The world would have to endure a level of soccer smugness it has never experienced from this particular direction. So here's the domino effect of one trophy. Win the World Cup leads to soccer booms, leads to kids flood in, leads to the league grows, leads to better players develop, leads to the team gets genuinely good long term, leads to, and 20 years later, the USA is an actual soccer superpower. One tournament can light a fuse that burns for decades. Compare that to what actually usually happens. USA does okay, gets knocked out, everyone forgets about soccer until the next tournament, and the cycle resets. The difference between forgotten again and soccer superpower could genuinely come down to a single tournament, a single game, a single bounce of the ball. And that's what makes this World Cup happening right now genuinely exciting. The USA already beat Paraguay 4-1. They're hosting. The crowds are massive. The door is cracked open in a way it hasn't been in 30 years. This isn't ancient history. It's happening on your screen this month. Will they actually win it? Realistically, probably not. The Giants are still the Giants, and a World Cup is brutally hard to win. But probably not is a lot more exciting than the usual definitely not. And in a knockout tournament, on home soil, riding a hot streak, stranger things have happened. The Emu War happened, for crying out loud. Now picture the dream scenario. The USA marches through the knockouts, reaches the final, and the whole country, even the people who swore they hated soccer, is glued to the screen. Bars packed, streets empty, one game away from rewriting the entire story. The tension would be unbearable. And if that final whistle blew with the USA on top, it wouldn't just be a trophy. It'd be the moment American soccer stopped being a punchline and became a powerhouse. The soccer guys would finally get to sit at the big kids table, and they would never, ever let anyone forget it. And that's the brain melter. One tournament happening right now on American soil could be the hinge that swings the USA from soccer afterthought to soccer superpower. History isn't just made in textbooks. Sometimes it's made on a Tuesday night, in a stadium, with a ball and 90 minutes and an entire country holding its breath. Meanwhile, in the most likely reality, the USA probably has a solid run, makes the country briefly care, and then we all go back to arguing about whether it's called football or soccer. Both timelines are fun, but only one of them ends with a parade, and we're allowed to dream about the parade. And honestly, that's the beauty of the World Cup. For a few weeks, a sport most Americans ignore makes the entire country feel something together. Win or lose, that's rare. And if they actually win, well, you'll remember exactly where you were. So maybe go watch the next game, just in case history's about to happen. So let's bring it home. The USA winning the World Cup would be one of the biggest upsets in sports history, and one of the biggest cultural shifts America's ever seen over a single trophy. A nation that calls it soccer, lifting the cup the whole world worships. The audacity alone would be legendary. It would take a hot streak, a home crowd, a kind knockout bracket, and a whole lot of those lucky bounces soccer is famous for. Long odds, but not impossible odds. And the tournament where they get to try is happening on your screen right now. And the real takeaway? Sometimes the biggest moments in a country's story aren't wars or elections. They're the times a bunch of people came together to watch a ball and dared to believe. Win or lose, the USA caring about soccer for a few weeks is its own kind of history, and it's being written right now. So next time someone says soccer is boring or that America will never care, remember this tournament. Remember the 4-1. Remember that the door is cracked open. And maybe, just maybe, keep one eye on the screen, because you do not want to be the person who missed it if history actually happens. And that's the what if that's actually playing out in real time. If this got you weirdly hyped about football, smash subscribe, because next week we pull another thread and break history all over again.